Section 4.2, Adding and Subtracting Decimals. When adding and subtracting decimals, you really just need to keep a couple of ideas in mind. One of those ideas is that you can only add or subtract digits that are in the same place value. For instance, let's say that you wanted to add the two numbers 58 and 37 hundredths and 2 and 6 tenths. In order to add those two numbers together, you need to make sure that when you are lining up the digits that you put the same place values in the same place values. So if I have 58.37 and I want to add 2.6, the 8 in 58 is in one's place and the 2 in 2.6 is in one's place. So those two need to be lined up, and then if I just go through and write the 6 underneath the 3, I'm also going to have the 6 and the 3 lined up correctly because those are both in tenths place. Then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to add. Some people like to put in another 0 as a placeholder so that it just looks right, but you don't need to do that. Remember, 2.6 is exactly the same value as 2.60. Now I would just go through and add these. 7 plus 0 is 7, 3 plus 6 is 9, 8 plus 2 gives me 10. I put down the 0 and carry the 1, and I get a 6 in the tens place. Remember, though, that you also need to put in your decimal point. So it's 60.97 for the final answer. Many people have heard, I am sure, that you just need to line up the decimal points. And that really is what you are doing as you are going through and adding or subtracting with decimals. Remember to keep the decimal points lined up. Perhaps the biggest mistake that I sometimes see people doing when adding or subtracting decimals is when they're adding or subtracting a whole number with a decimal. Let's say that you were given the whole number 15 and wanted to add 3.2 to that. Well, remember, in the number 15, there's an understood decimal point at the end of it because it is a whole number. So when I want to add these together, I need the 15 and the 3 has to go underneath the 5. So it would be 3.2 because of this understood decimal point right underneath the 15. I often see people, if they have 15 plus 3.2, try to add it up like this, 15 plus 3.2, which you can't do because that's not 1.5, that's 15. So you can't do that. So if I am going to add these together, 15 plus 3.2, lining up the decimal points, once again I can put a 0 in the tenths place in the 15 if I want to, and then go through and add up the numbers. I get 18.2 for my answer. Let's take a look at the same set of numbers, but let's talk about subtraction. So if I wanted to subtract 15 subtract 3.2, I need to do the same thing. I'm going to put down my 15. There's an understood decimal point after the 5 because that's the whole number 15. And I have 3.2. And I'm going to subtract. This time, make positive sure that when you subtract, that you remember that there is an understood 0 here. Because I have to take 2 that I have right here from something. So I'm going to have to go through and regroup. So I'm going to change the 5 to a 4, and that 1 that I took away I'm going to bring over here to tenths place. 10 tenths is the same as that 1 that I took away. Now 10 minus 2 is 8, 4 minus 3 is 1, 1 minus 1, I also get a 1, and I need to put in my decimal point. I get 11.8. Once again, a common mistake that I will see people do with something like 15 minus 3.2 is they will line up the decimal points the correct way, but they'll just bring down the 2. Well, you cannot do that. You cannot just bring down the 2 because there is that understood 0 there. You have to take 2 away from something. Please be cautious with that. This problem, 9 minus 3.274, works the same way, but you are going to have a lot of zeros that you need to deal with. So I'm going to write this 9 minus 3.274, and remember that I have to put zeros in as placeholders. Now I have to go through and do a good amount of regrouping. I can't take 4 from 0, so I'm going to come over, take 1 away from the 9, make it an 8, and make the tenths place a 10. I still can't take 4 from 0, so I'm going to take 1 away from the tenths place, make it a 9, and put a 10 in the hundredths place. I still can't take 4 from 0. So again, I'm going to go through, I'm going to take 1 away from the hundredths place, I'm going to put a 10 in the thousandths place. Now I can go through and I can subtract. 10 subtract 4 gives me 6, 9 subtract 7 gives me 2, 9 subtract 2 gives me 7, 8 subtract 3 gives me 5, and I put in my decimal point for an answer of 5.726. Once again, whenever you are doing a problem like this, I would advise you, especially if it's on a test, to go through and check it by addition by adding your answer, known as the difference, to the number that you were subtracting, and check and make sure that it does work. 6 plus 4 gives me 10, put down the 0, carry the 1. 7 plus 2 gives me 9, plus 1 gives me another 10. I put down the 0, I carry the 1. 7 plus 1 gives me 8, plus 2 gives me 10. I put down the 0 and carry the 1. And 5 plus 1 plus 3 gives me 9, and I put down my decimal point. Please make sure, especially on a test, that you check your answer by addition. We have not done a lot of applications of math in our course so far, but there is an idea to consider in this section: perimeter. Perimeter means the distance around an object. And before we do it with decimals, let's just do it with whole numbers. Let's say that you were given a rectangle, and the dimensions of the rectangle were 5 centimeters by 3 centimeters. What's the perimeter of that? Well, the perimeter means the distance all the way around. So starting at one spot and going all the way around that particular figure. So all you need to do is add up the numbers, 5 plus 3, but notice in the red I've only gone halfway around. I still need to go another 5 and another 3. So one way of doing this is just adding 5 plus 3 plus 5 plus 3, which gives me a total of 16, and I need to label it 16 centimeters. There's another way to do this as well. I'm going to do this in blue. So when I go around 5 plus the 3, notice that that's halfway around. The other way I could do this is I could say, well, I know 5 plus 3 is equal to 8, and as I say, I went halfway around. Well, I could double that 8. So 8 plus 8 would also give me 16, and once again labeling it 16 centimeters. It doesn't matter which way you go through and do it. So let's find the perimeter of something now with decimals. Let's say that you were given, this time not a rectangle, but you're given what's known as a trapezoid. A trapezoid is a four-sided shape. Two of the sides are parallel, so my top and my bottom are parallel here. And I'm going to tell you what the lengths of the sides are. The bottom is 8.2 centimeters, the top is 6 centimeters, and both of the sides are 3.58 centimeters long. In order to find out the perimeter of this, for this, I just have to go all the way around. I cannot do what I had done up here because I don't have the sides being exactly the same, the opposite sides being exactly the same throughout. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to add up 6 plus 3.58, and I'm going to make sure that I line up my decimal points because there's an understood decimal point after the 6, plus 8.2 plus another 3.58. and I'm going to add up all those numbers. Once again, when you're adding up the numbers, a lot of people do like to put in place value zeros, just so everything looks like it has the same number of digits, and then I would just go through and add these. So let me do that quickly. 8 plus 8 gives me 16. Put down the 6, carry the 1. 5 plus 1 is 6. Plus my 2 gives me 8. Plus my 5 gives me 13. Put down the 3, carry the 1. 6 plus 3 gives me 9. Plus 1 gives me 10. And then I have another 11 with the 8 and the 3. I get 21.36. And once again, I need to label it. 21.36 centimeters is the perimeter of that trapezoid. As I said at the beginning, there are a couple of ideas to keep in mind when adding and subtracting decimals. If there is anything I can do to help as you work through the homework in this section, please let me know.